fruit snacks or
Welcome once
whatever.
again
Really good too.
to Clinical Theurgy, episode 31.
We made it.
You are alive and well, and back from Borgholm.
Kinda well. I'm still technically cursed, which is kind of not fun, but
It's
know.
fine. It hasn't come up yet, so you're fine.
Yet
I'm about to
is the
lose all my
key
gear.
word.
But wait, she was basically fighting that magma golem with minimal help from us, so shouldn't that count?
No, not quite.
No way.
She did not defeat the magma golem. My bad math defeated the magma golem.
What?
Yeah, because I did not
That
properly.
was not the magma golem. That was the.
Or I'm sorry,
She's
the
talking
stone
about-
golem.
Yeah, she's talking
Yeah.
about the magma one that was outside where no one could do anything.
Those weren't more
because-
powerful than you. Get out of here. Stop trying to sell things that aren't true.
Hey, I don't
Steve.
know their power level. Okay.
You knew you needed minimal effort to defeat them.
Steve.
Minimal
to be fair,
effort. I used all my resources.
Minimal-
That's not minimal
Also,
effort.
to be fair,
Minimal
the protection from energy absorbed a lot of damage that fight.
Yeah, but theoretically, we were told that like I could potentially maybe have some help.
No
but we're
way,
just...
not that much.
No, you-
help. I like made you immune to everything they did.
They
No
also
way.
were not. They were not anywhere near more powerful.
I literally don't know what their power level was. I just know that I was like.
It was
doing
somewhere
more
around
damage.
like just above 9,000, I think. The power.
Thank you. 9001.
But anyway,
Closest
none of
stop
this
going over.
none of this was stuff that was last session. This stuff was session before. What
Also-
actually happened last session?
Your bad
Okay.
math countered your other bad math, so it didn't matter.
So last session, we were in the library. We had a very fun time with a stone golem. So Goron took the special book that was in the very special, like, obvious place, and that made the golem mad. So we were trying to fight it, but Goron came in with stone shape, and he worked at it until he basically stone shaped the floor out from under the golem with a little help from some bad math.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up destroying the whole dang library and a lot of gold worth of books with it, but not before Antaeus was like scooping things off tables into his backpack and stuff, and we got away. We spent a night in the tunnels because we were kind of concerned that the dwarves might just not let us leave with the book, so we were like trying to discuss strategy. But it turns out they did. They basically sent us back with a contract for Ninoslav to sign. And it was like we were on this quest thing that basically if we didn't do what we said and bring the contract to him, and then, if we didn't agree to the terms, we had to get the book back to the dwarves or we would basically decay. But fortunately, Ninoslav did sign the contract. However, we didn't tell him that, that it was like there was some magic with it and it set off some alarms. And he kind of got a scolding because he didn't check it. He assumed we had.
Well, to
But-
be fair, he should have checked it also.
Yeah, to be fair, technically even if we had checked it, he's supposed to also.
He
check it.
acknowledged that he fucked up too.
That's
No,
true. If
he
he's gonna
did.
jump
He
down our
definitely
throats,
did.
then we're gonna jump down his throat for the same.
No, it
shit.
doesn't work that way. He has already got somebody jumping down his throat
I'm
for his
just not
mistake.
taking full note blame for this.
Thank you.
But part of our agreement too is that we're not supposed to be sharing this information with the public, which the ministry was like, yeah, we don't want you sharing this with the public anyway. So, but he signed the contract. Antaeus is going to work with the team that's trying to figure out like what the book says, because the thing about the book is, even though it has some letters in Old Draconic, it's not very it's not intelligible. You can't just read it. It's some kind of cipher. We also, before we returned, we sold our vehicle back to Grickle Pickle, and we met Rickle Pickle. Let's see. And then major thing that happened last time was Gulron decided that he was no longer going to follow Sascha, and instead he is going to follow Kraskaron. And the holy symbol of Sasha was like burning on him, and he had to like rip it off, and so now he's got to deal with the fallout with Father Moirin.
I have some questions about that,
Mm-hmm.
just out of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like a known thing that if you're wearing a holy symbol of a different deity? No?
No.
So, okay. That gives my inner Sasha worshiper in another game hope.
I think Kraskaron's just a jealous god.
Maybe he was like, if you're gonna worship me, you gotta get that stuff off your neck. Burn!
Sick.
I mean, he didn't make my back burn or other things like that. But anyways, most of these items belong to the Church of Shashat or whatever, so that's why I'm pretty.
Yeah, but does
much getting
anything
them.
else you have like? Because isn't your holy symbol like didn't it have like a symbol of Sasha on it? Does anything else you would
Yeah.
have?
No, several things.
Mm.
I have specifically asked for a lot of my items to be emblazoned or embossed with her symbol.
I assume a holy symbol would be a little bit more like important to the gods than like other random gear.
Well, in this case, the holy symbol was more than just a holy symbol. It was an amulet of natural armor +2, I believe.
Only had one.
One? Okay.
Oh, damn. Okay.
So there's that's going to have to be dealt with this session, as well as we found out a little bit more about some of the blight. It's like a mix of Feyan magic and abyssal magic, and they were able to retrieve some figure and voice of the mother from Baru's memory, and let's see, yeah, it was something about it was said they had some power over arcane magics, either a dryad or a nymph, and they were fed by the father. The dryad fey creature, that's just what they told us about what dryads and nymphs were. And it desires to cover the world in itself. And I asked about Baru's eyes, and they were saying that's a result of the mixing of fey and abyssal. And they're working on mental protection for us. And so we have 5 days of R&R, and Nia went straight home and planted her armor and watered it. Just throwing that out there. And so Antaeus is going to study a book, and and on the plans for this session for Nia is she's wanting to host another dinner party for the group, figuring that Goron may not have an easy time explaining everything to Moirin, and he might need a sympathetic ear or something to cheer him up. And then Niev also wants to hit the library as well.
Yeah, I have a good list of what everybody wanted to do this session. So, the real question is, who do we start with first? It's very clearly not going to be Antaeus.
I'm good for whatever.
So, I think since there's some crossover in the Gulron Antaeus stuff, although we could... I need to work up some role-playing energy for this Gulron segment.
Oh, God. Okay.
I have a quick, very not heavily role-playing thing I want to do.
Okay.
Just that armor that we got from I can't remember his name. Ian, I think was his name.
Mm-hmm.
The dragon guy. I have the armor at my house, and I'd like to take it someplace where they could identify it for us.
Sure. You can take the armor of Ian Furness to... It's a great name.
How did I not remember that?
To be identified. It is basic +1 breastplate. And they're willing to pay you 50% value for it, so 450. They don't value the armor at anything, they just value the magical enchantment on it of value. So you actually get it's an even bigger reduction in value here.
That's fine. I might hold on to it for now because it might still be better than what I'm wearing currently until I can for to like get myself like mithril or something.
Gotcha.
So I might actually switch this out for the time being and use it.
It will need to be refitted then. But that will be a pretty minor cost for the most part. Somebody's just going to have to take measurements and then refit it to you, because Ian's body was much larger than yours, being part dragon. And that's not exactly the same shape in body structure.
Yeah, so I guess I will talk to them and figure out who could work on refitting this for me.
Yep.
Because I think I will wear this in the interim between getting something else a little bit better.
Okay.
Because it will be a boost of like 3 AC just flat, so I might as well.
Okay. And then I believe, actually, since we're on the subject of you, I believe you had some of your own research you wanted to do.
Yeah, so I mean, I wanted to look into more of this stuff about like my father, but I guess I don't know what I know so far, so I don't really know where I would start because I'm not sure what information I currently have.
So I believe when last we talked about this, you know your father has kind of disappeared. There's really no sign of your father anywhere. It's been a very long time, basically since roughly your late childhood, your late adolescence as you're moving into early adulthood, that you had kind of last seen or heard from him. And
I do know that I ran across some of his like presumed enemies, and I don't know if I got like any tidbits of like anything from dealing with them, like if they gave any hint of having seen him or knowing if he's alive or like knowing any information at all, or if it was just all of a sudden like I have these people like.
No, most of your father's enemies are enemies from some time ago.
Gotcha.
So they're not people that know him now. They're people that either survived by the skin of their teeth or perhaps never came to be defeated by your father.
So I think with the little bit of interactions we've had so far and not really knowing where else to turn, I might actually go track down Niev and have her get me in contact with Tehran, because I basically know that he's sort of a person who can find out information well, and I think I might start there and just see where that goes.
Yeah, so we can say you probably do that in the morning. You probably get up in the morning.
Yeah.
You'll on the way back from speaking with Ninoslav, you can probably check in with the armor, get the sizing done, and then the next morning kind of ask Niev to check into or ask Tehran about this little investigation you'd like done.
Yeah, we'll definitely agree.
All right. It'll be probably about the better part of the day before Tehran will get back to you. But when he does, he'll have like a series of questions about your past, just little details here and there that he'll collect from you. So let's start with a few of them. So the first and most important detail is, where were you born?
Do I know where I was born?
You could decide where you were born. Or at
well,
least
I
where
mean,
you know yourself to be born. Maybe I decide to change that at some point. Who knows?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think when we had talked, it was obviously I was born. Well, I'm presuming I was born somewhere, obviously in this like country, but I thought I was like on the other side somewhere.
Perhaps.
So I don't like have the map.
I'm not sure is also a valid option.
Yeah, I would tell him that I'm honestly not 100% sure. I believe I was born in this country, but somewhere on the I think it would be like more like the eastern side of the country.
Okay.
It's probably the most information I would know, I guess.
Do you have powers? I'm assuming you're working for the ministry, right? So what
Yes.
powers manifest for you?
From a very young age, I was the same as my dad, a magus, and he trained me, and sent me to a magus school.
And you're sure it was a school for magus?
I believe so, as much as I can remember. I mean, I don't recall if there was training there for others as well, but I know he started personally training me and then sent me to this school to continue it, and then he disappeared. And I was already in the school, so I finished my training.
How do you feel about loud noises?
I don't know. The fuck?
Okay, that didn't make you jump. Good. Good. When it comes to manifesting your powers, is it like moving water or like drawing diagrams? He's essentially asking if you're a charisma-based caster, a caster who uses more of the motion of moving arcana versus someone who like has to plot out all the points and connect all the dots.
I'll definitely say it feels more like the natural movements of water and more intuitive things than sitting down and plotting things.
Do you know any gnomes?
I mean, I think we met. Yeah, we met a few recently, but just recently.
Perhaps in your school, do you remember any gnomes or gnomish people or?
Not that I recall off the top of my head. Not anything that like is jumping out as like so apparent that I definitely remember it.
And what about goblins? How do you feel about goblins?
They're semi-interesting.
Semi-interesting. You notice that's the first thing he's written down in the entire conversation. Well, that was worth 50 gold. So.
What? Wait, what?
What? I'm always looking for profit opportunities. Of course. Why not?
What's it put you up to that question?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Mm.
I will say that I saw an opportunity. I went and discussed with some people who I thought might have some interest or might have asked me if I knew any details about people, if how much they'd be willing to pay for details.
Right, well, hope all of these questions aren't making it back to him.
No, not all of these questions. I'm being clear with you about the question that will. I believe I may know where to start looking for notes for, based on some of what I'm getting here, and based on what you're saying. It is likely, if you were at some kind of place of education that pertains to magic, and one that isn't necessarily about the intellectual arts of magic, you likely come from not far from the Desert of Disorder. You likely were going to school in Wusar, sort of a capital of gnomes, if you will, and their dark counterparts. I might be able to find some notes there if I search for a while, and I do have a contact over there I can associate with. I think I should be able to find something very, very interesting. The question is, what can you pay me that isn't gold in exchange for this information?
I'm not sure. What sort of non-gold payments would you be looking for?
You're working with Ninoslav, is that correct?
I am.
Well, since I lost a few of my inside contacts within there, it would be helpful if maybe in a circumstance where you're dealing with one of your campaigns or with one of your won't call them campaigns. I think that's fair. You all go out and deal with something in a specific location as a team. You could perhaps say you found some notes pertaining to the Tarpinian family and ask if Ninoslav happens to know anything about what happened to them. And explain to him that it's crucial to the mission that you know what happened to them.
So you want me to lie to my boss, who's helping me be able to, do what I need to do in this town?
Ninoslav has information that is very important to me, and I am on the cusp of something very, very dear to me. And I will have an exchange for what he's taken from me indirectly.
I'll see what I can do.
And I will have plenty of information for you very soon then.
Okay.
Yeah. How does Ivy feel in that?
I don't know. It's gonna take some processing.
Yeah. So, let's find out what kind of research Niev wants to dig into.
So, Niev was kind of what has been on her mind is that being new to this area, she doesn't know a whole lot of the local customs. She's not really familiar with the rules of the ministry, what she's supposed to follow, because she literally just assumed Brianna's life.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's also curious about what the ministry knows about the local druids, what deity they serve, if any, what activity they know of the druids. She's just curious about, the local druids around here. I mean, well, not local, because I know you've already said that there's not really druids in this city, but she's just trying to get information on both the ministry and the local things around here, as well as the druids of Sierra Savant.
Okay. So the question I will have is there are a couple of libraries within Sierra Savant. Within Knightsbridge. There is a library within the halls of the Temple of Sashat. The Ministry of Magic has its own archives, and there is a sort of public library. So which of those places would you feel would probably give you better access to the information you're looking for?
I would say probably the ministry, especially since some of what she's looking for is literally the rules she's supposed to follow for the ministry, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Just so that she knows, because Niev's kind of the person that she wouldn't want to inadvertently violate a rule, kind of what happened with Ninoslav. She would have had no idea to do that or not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So she's wanting to make sure she's covered there.
Okay. And about how long are you going to take to do this research?
So is Gulron going today to talk to Moirin?
Yeah, he would have made that clear. That was on his most important thing to do.
So I would say that she would want to spend most of the afternoon, I'm going to say, doing that. And then on her way home, she would pick up some items to make for this dinner party, because she's wanting the dinner party to happen after everything with Moirin.
Okay, so I am going to give you I'm going to utilize a system which I used in the conscripted session, wherein I'm going to give you the option to either get one answer to this is going to be a kind of moderate level question, not a high level question, because you're not devoting a full day. Or you can make a roll to attempt to get three answers to three moderate questions. But based on what you're talking about, this would be either knowledge local or knowledge law if you have rank specifically in knowledge law. Remember, knowledge law is not a base level skill, so it does not count for the like bardic stuff or anything else that would give you ranks in knowledges or allow you to roll untrained. So I don't know if you have ranks in it, but if you do, you can make that instead. But if you take the option of just getting the one answer, you don't have to roll. It's assumed you've taken the time to make sure you definitively get the answer you're looking for.
Okay. So I guess I guess I'll roll and just see if I get. Let's see. I don't have law, but I do have local.
Okay. Ooh. This is going to get you access to basically just a sort of minor question. I think a lot of this comes down to you don't really know the books to look for in the first place, and you're asking around, to try to find them, but that consumes a lot of your time. Like you ask them, I'm looking for a book with this topic on it, and you kind of go over and you pull it down from the shelf, and you look at it and you're like, this isn't exactly what I meant. Like, I need something more like this. And you keep kind of going back and forth. But one of the things you get from this is the caretaker of the archives is not a very deductive person. They are almost coldly rational. So if you don't present to them kind of the right input chain, they're not going to be able to be of very much help to you. But you do have one minor question, and you can ask it, and I'll tell you whether that's minor or more than minor. And you can try to either scope it down or play with it, however.
Okay.
But I'll give you a moment to think while you're doing that.
Okay.
And let's jump over to the other person who talked about researching, Antaeus.
Yo.
How do you intend to research the mistress?
That's a good question. I'm assuming there's not a whole lot of stuff here that I can find in the local library.
There is basically no stuff
ministry
here about this mistress.
Well, that's good because that's good to know, because there are a couple of items that I was hoping that I'd be able to get commissioned for me. Because we have at least probably 3. You said like about 5 days.
You have 5
or so?
days. Yep.
Okay. Perfect. If you'd like, I don't remember if I sent you the list, but
I don't think you did. Let me double check.
But I will send it once again in via Discord, or send it via Discord. I think I intended to, but I don't know if I was finished looking at it. There might still be other stuff I want to get at some point, but I might as well use this writ that I have while I can.
That sizable writ that you have.
If those numbers are off, please let me know, because I think that I.
Okay. And who are you going to ask about having these things made?
That is a good question. I'm going to go to that one person that I might know about. Does that knowledge local yield anything?
Okay. Let me look through what the stuff that you're looking for here.
The last one is the last one is one that I'm not 100% certain as to if I'd be able to get. So if I would be, what kind of item it would be. The most important one, one of the more important ones I wanted was to get the page-bound epiphany. The other ones.
Ryan, you're starting to look like me on this, except that what you're supposed to do is take item creation feats so you can do it yourself.
Oh, I can't do that. I've got to throw vaporous things at people. See, this is why you have an R&D department, Steve.
All right.
But we'll get to that later.
Well, there actually is an R&D department, but.
Well, yeah, no, I have to have my own personal R&D department.
Okay, so you actually, all of these do relate to the same thing.
That makes sense.
So you will realize with your very good knowledge local, there is a very useful person in town that you can talk to about making these. They are a devout follower of Sascha, or I'm sorry, not Sascha, of Suinol. They operate a small shop not too far from the what was I calling it? The Divine Gardens, which is basically where all of the temples and whatnot are. And in their shop, they have a number of things that relate to various intellect exchange or intellect gathering sort of things. And so that is probably the best place to start.
Perfect. Do I know their name or?
Their name is being generated right now.
That's fine.
I never put a name to this person in this shop.
It's more so that when I go speak to them, I can address them by name as opposed to being like, "Hey, you."
They are Majoliane Charbonnet.
Oof. Luckily, my character has linguistics.
That is Elvin.
Oh, good. And because I don't know if I personally can replicate that sound coming out of my mouth. Do I know the description of them so that when I go in there I could...
Yeah, they are a young elven woman, or at least presumably young. It's always hard to tell with elves what age they are. But they have been sort of following the idea of Suinol for quite some time, without sort of realizing it. And when they sort of came to this revelation, they felt it was necessary to learn how to make knowledge more accessible to everybody by combining the knowledge of magic they had and the love of information they had and the understanding that they have of how to do this more efficiently. And so one of the things that you know of that they have there is they have, one of the things that you're looking for is actually page-bound epiphany. They have books that are single-use instances of that spell. So you pick it up and you name the thing, and the book fills with all of that thing.
Oh. And it's the text, I'm assuming, is permanent?
The text is permanent, yes. So you retain the book with all of its features.
That is very interesting. Now, if I remember correctly, Suinol is not as widely known as like Thoth or Sascha, correct?
No, Suinol is well known. Suinol is just not a highly followed religion because, honestly, yes, it's a very boring religion. Like and it tends to be more arcane spellcasters that are of the less kind of intrusive or explosive, or like, because it doesn't really align itself in any direction, it doesn't exactly draw in all the attention that other things might. So everybody knows of Suinol. Yeah. But nobody really, there's not like some big fervor, go Suinol. People who are all about Suinol are like, yeah, Suinol's great. Don't you want to learn about Suinol? And everybody's like, I don't know. This sounds like it's going to be boring. You're going to talk a lot about how great books are, aren't you?
Sounds like my kind of guy. Even though they don't like necessarily, they're not as explosive or any of that stuff that I am. But okay, I guess I must be thinking of characters because more characters tend to sway one way or the other. So
yeah,
are more exciting.
With regard to knowledge, people tend to either be on the Sascha side of defending knowledge or the Thoth side of all the knowledge for me and for no one else. A lot less people tend to be like, no, let's just put the knowledge out there and make sure it's accessible.
Sounds like a bunch of extremists. I like Sulinol. All right, I'll go in there and I'll greet her, and I will. I personally can't say her name.
That's fine.
But and that
she allows for. Well, I guess you would be able to in Elven, so you could exchange pleasantries in your native tongue, basically.
yes. Hello.
Ah, hello. It is nice to see someone coming in and seeking knowledge. I would note from the bottles at your hip that you are likely an alchemist, yes?
Very keen. Yes, I am.
I try to be. I think it's very important to know who you're serving.
Ah, yes. My name is Antaeus Amon. I don't know if you've heard about me, but I've heard about you and your magics and Sulinol and all of that. So I figured you would be the perfect person to come to with questions about this stuff.
I don't think I've heard of you, but perhaps your name will grow in time.
I'm sure it will. I'm on my way to do that soon, anyways. But yes.
I must ask you something, though.
Yes.
You don't happen to be a blood worshipper, do you?
When you say blood worshipper,
you have something that I notice you can't keep in your backpack, probably because it's very sharp, and seems to be glowing with an energy, and it took me a moment to realize what it is, but it's a common item carried by blood worshippers.
No, I'm not a blood worshipper. I went and spoke to somebody about obtaining this item because I thought that it would be a way that I could use it to for my alchemy in lieu of more expensive components.
Ah, yes, I imagine that would be quite useful. A number of people use it for a number of other things, but it has that use as well.
Oh yes, it's entirely so that I can make a quick buck or quick coin.
Well, everybody is looking for a quick coin now and then. Some more than others.
Indeed. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess I should start with what I'm looking for specifically. Pagebound Epiphany, something that I've recently.
Yes, one of my most popular items is here. People do often enjoy having a copy of one of these books if they have a specifically interesting topic they want to research. Some people get a bit of an unrealistic expectation, though, about the book.
What expectation is that?
So some people think it's going to unlock all of the answers of whatever that thing they're looking for is, and don't realize that it only can provide you with the answers you can obtain, and then it gives you kind of a cliff notes afterwards of what you're looking to remember.
Actually, speaking on that, now, the way that the spell works, would that be affected by the magical barrier of the country?
What we've found so far when we've done some experimentation is that there is some limiter to the things, but we don't believe it's the external barrier. We have been able to pull notes about other countries from it. But there is something that gets a bit in the way when we do it. But we've chalked that up to being more of a Thoth problem and less of a barrier problem.
Yes, Thoth. He is a deity to some, I suppose. I don't necessarily agree with his stances, but I suppose he's earned his place.
He does indeed have his place. There are times where I would love to say that all knowledge should be available, but let's face it, some knowledge, when you give it to the general public, ultimately results in constant bickering and infighting, and better some people don't know things that they might use improperly.
Yes, things that they might not even begin to understand.
Yes, exactly.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. There's no reason for them to be worried about things that they and cause more problems and snowball effect and so on and so forth.
Yes, we could get on for politics for quite some time, but perhaps we should get down to business on things. This is what I do, and this is definitely my time for doing it. Are you interested in the individual books, or do you have more specific interests?
The individual books, what would be the cost of those?
Those books have give me one sec. I had thought these up, but I'd never really come down to the full cost on it because I wasn't sure if anyone would care.
Because I would be interested, and that way I could grow a personal library of things. But just trying to weigh out what the most financially sound option is.
Of course.
But I did have also a small list of things that I was hoping you might be able to provide me with. I've got roughly 5 days I'll be back in town.
Here.
No, Max.
Do you need me to turn on the light in there? So the individual use, why is this coming out weird in terms of the math? I think your math. I'm looking at the wrong line. Okay, no, that's about right. These books are around 300 gold each. Now, it's important to remember they are still a point of reference should you need them. Unlike just a single use within a book of this will allow you to keep the text within the book as well. So they do impart you a bonus on that. They do provide you insight on that specific topic whenever you have the book at hand.
That is very important, in fact. Yes, actually, I would like a number of these. I'll have to figure out financially exactly how many I would be able to afford at the moment, but also I was wondering if there were a couple of other things I would like to have, and for instance, it's like in case they come up, there are certain things like mind link and share memory. I would like things perhaps like once a day use, and something I don't intend to use very often, but there are always prying eyes and ears, and some information is too sensitive to share via those means.
Is this the kind of item where you would be informing someone you would intend to take this action?
Generally speaking, yes. I can't imagine. Well, I would like to say that would always be the case, but I don't want to say never, because then something will happen where that is something that I would need it for. But I think the general use would be for something where it would be a known use of it. Yes.
Well, then I think perhaps. So there's a few ways that we can do this. We can either have it be something that two people must be interacting with it simultaneously in order to have it function. And that helps reduce the overall cost. If multiple people have to sort of trigger the item at one time, it drives the cost down a bit lower. But of course, if you need it to be something that only you interact with, maybe for some reason the other person can't interact for some reason, then you might need something that's tied to a more specific location on your person, or it might become more expensive if you're doing it individually. By default, a spell like that would cost you for a single use right around about 400 gold, a little less than. But if we attached a linking point to it where it was perhaps something both of you had to interact with simultaneously and utter a word together or do some kind of other action together, we could make it so it doesn't need to be on you at all times. It could be something you could simply pull out of your pocket, extend to the other person, and grab for the same price.
So that way it wouldn't have to attune to me?
Yes, it would be ready to go and would be usable by any two people without having to be put on your body specifically.
I do like that idea. I like that a lot, in fact. Then I wouldn't have to use up like a slot on a person to carry that.
The most common way that people prefer to do this is to do a sort of, as I like to call it, old-fashioned messaging device. A pair of, it is 2 objects that you hold on to on each side with a string in between. Usually some kind of can-like object for visual effect.
Ah, yes.
Of course, it's not going to project the information via the can, but the action is often they both put them up to their ears and then momentarily exchange information.
Perfect. And actually, would this be something that it would look just like a couple of cans and some string?
Yes.
To the naked eye, it wouldn't necessarily look at like anything worthwhile, perhaps.
Well, people who know my particular blend of craftsmanship might recognize it pretty quickly, but they might not know which one it is. I use this gimmick for a lot of things.
That's fair. I meant more so to like the common thief or somebody that is looking to rummage about my items.
Well, it depends. Does the thief have access to being able to detect magic? I mean, they might think if you have 2 cans and a string tying something together that this is probably interesting and worthy of taking either way.
That's fair.
I even find that thieves start to take pebbles once they're interacting with people of significant enough power.
Yes, I'm sure that this would be the least of their concerns if they were investigating me and knew things that I had. But yes, it's useful, but there are other more useful things I have. As I pat wherever the dagger's at. Actually, speaking on that, would you happen to have anything for? Well, I guess that would. Oh yeah, yes. The shared memory. I'm assuming in the mind link you'd have items of similar kind of make. I'm assuming.
Correct.
In the way that they work. Now, if I wanted to say use borrow skill, once again, not something I would expect to use often, but I suppose there are times when having somebody that could utilize a skill as well that most people may not have would be useful, especially in research. That, I think,
this is a bit outside of my reach, unfortunately. I'd have to contract this out. My forte is not in the skills as they pertain to the more musically inclined, but I'm sure I could find someone who could manage to do such a thing.
The more musically inclined.
Yes. This is a spell that is fairly specific to bardic types.
Oh yes, of course.
And that does tend to get in the way of production, at least making sure that things are done efficiently and effectively without concern for errors.
Now, is that something that would also need to be attuned before use, or?
Again, it would depend on your implementation. I'd like to say that if you can think creatively, you can defeat most of the complexities that cause enhanced costs.
Excellent.
But it needs to be creative. The universe does not respect it when you are not thinking creatively.
Good point. No trains came around here. Now, that's something that I suppose I would have to dwell upon. Dwell upon? That's not the word I'm looking for. Anyways, yes, that is something that I would like. I'm assuming that would take less time. I suppose I have a couple of days to think about that. Well, I don't know how long it would take you to get in contact.
That will take me some amount of time, but it is not a very expensive thing to make, so it will not take long to produce.
Excellent.
Now,
also, there's one last thing specifically. I don't know if you have any other things that are like this page-bound Epiphany book. I do thoroughly enjoy that. And if you have other things that I perhaps did not come in here for, I would like to peruse a bit, maybe.
I would have to think on a number of things, and I don't keep a lot of my stuff out on display. I think of this more so as a place for creativity and sort of expansion of the mind. So you dream it, and we try to fabricate how to make it happen.
I like this place.
Most people who come here do, and those that don't like it don't need to be here.
Thinking creatively on the fly is not always necessarily my forte, but I like having to occasionally do things outside of the box.
Well, perhaps it is best. Maybe take some time, think on things. But if you'd like, I can get to work on the mind link for you.
Yes, and share memory as well.
Yes. Let me verify something here. I don't think that should be a problem. Yes, we should be able to do both these things for you. No problem.
Now, there is a spell, Visualization of the Mind. I don't know if that's outside of your wheelhouse as well, but
no, it is not. It is within it. The only downside you'll need to keep in mind there is a component that you're going to need to acquire a very large amount of. You'll need a lot of incense, and it needs to be specifically crushed into a very, very fine mist and blended in with the object as it is produced. This is a bit harder a thing to put together.
Yes, of course. Now, just out of curiosity, Steve, would I know if because this dagger works differently than what I would have expected it to. It is something that I would still have to be using myself, right? That I would have to be casting the spell myself to do, or?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not something like if I were to assist them.
No, if you do not have the item creation feats, you won't be able to do this. And even then, this gets into what I'm talking about with the whole blood stuff. That you'd have to go down a very fun road.
I don't know if I have enough blood to go down that road.
You have enough blood. You just don't think you have enough blood.
I don't like the ominous nature of that message.
One day.
Okay. But, yes. Now, the cost of these. Do you have a rough idea of how much it would be?
Well, the shared memory would be around 2,400 gold. The mind link we could do for around 400. As far as your visualization of the mind is concerned, though, that is going to take a bit more of an issue. Or a bit more difficulty in thinking on. You're going to need to think creatively for how you want the implementation of that object to be.
But it is doable, though, yes?
Indeed.
Now, I'll kind of rummage around through my things real quickly, and I will pull out my. Let me make sure I have this writ still. I'm fairly certain I do.
Yeah. You do.
Okay.
You doth.
I just moved. I just moved it around on my sheet. I'll pull out the writ for the amount. Now I know that these can't necessarily be broken up, but
if you have a list of things equal to this that you want from here, we'll take care of it. All together.
Perfect. Now, let's see. That would be about 4, 8. Let me do a bit of quick math. 40 plus 2,400. Damn. Okay, I suppose for the time being, for the sake of utilizing this entire writ, would I be able to purchase the shared memory, the mind link, and the borrow skill? Well, actually, you said you'd have to.
Yes. How often would you be looking for the borrowed skill to be used?
I suppose it's going to cost like that. I suppose Actually, you know what? 3 times a day seems. I don't necessarily need it for that, but I could see that being useful more than once per day. I do want some more of these books, unless it's easier to do less often per day.
Anything could be done. It's just a matter of figuring out the math. Let's see. Damn. Times 3.
Perfect. I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone when I do that.
About 1,000 gold.
Oh, perfect. All right. If my math is correct, it would cost a little more than simply. Well, actually, I suppose I could just do.
Well, right now, from what you've spoken of, not including this visualization of the mind thing, I am looking at us being at. You said share memory, mind link, borrow skill, and you have not named a number of books that you're interested in.
Oh, yes.
But we're presently at 3,800. 3,800 gold.
3,800, and then 3,068. And if I got 11 of these books, it would bring me up to about 71, correct?
If you were getting how many of the books? I'm sorry.
11. You said they were 300 a piece, correct?
Yes.
Wait, did I do my math wrong on that?
Well, it would be 3,300. So I would put you at 7,100.
Perfect.
I think we can cover the gap there.
Are you sure?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well then, and I believe, I guess I should ask. These would be ready within the 5 days. Yes. If not,
easily.
I can. Oh, perfect. I just wanted to make sure that I had time to pick them up before we left.
Yes,
And then,
I can easily make sure that's done.
excellent. Perfect. Thank you very much. I will. You said now. I guess that would take about probably. Well, wait. How many days do you accept?
In about 3 days.
Perfect. I will come back in about 3 days.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
And, yep.
So, we're going to get to, I think, the icing on the cake here for tonight. But before we do that, we're going to take a what may be a short break. We'll see you soon, Goran.